Pardon me the delay, folks, but worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq hollering at you one more again. All right. Fantabulous. All right, folks. Um, so I want to thank you all once again for chiming in with me. A little bit different format today. We're going to go ahead and do this live, and I'm going to present first the fourth installment of the 10-part series, um, What We Are. And then after the presentation, I'm going to open it up for Q&A. All right. So thank you all. And let's begin. I appreciate your patience. All right. So first off, on the last series, we left off speaking about some profound things, right? Um, Consciousness being a major player in physics, and that consciousness impacts your reality. And we mentioned um, that is done in some very profound ways, right? So we've been able to sort of hone ourselves into three sections, right? That will give us a pretty solid understanding of exactly how this works, and then we can afterwards discuss our individual perspectives on that and share with each other in that way. All right. So first of all, I just want to read a couple of things to you here. Well, let me make the statement first that we walk into this with the basic understanding that all things in existence are never truly at rest, right? That they are vibrational in nature, right? Meaning that all things at the most basic level, at the particle level, are actually always in constant motion, in vibration motion, right? That is very measurable, and the means in which of doing that is measuring it in what scientists refer to as frequency. Now, frequency simply, in the way I would put it, refers to the duration, right, or the amount, or the how frequently a particle vibrates within a observable period of time, right? Um, let's say that's a second. How many times does this particle actually vibrate within a second, right? Um, but to give you a different definition on that, um, Britannica reports that vibrational frequency in physics is that in physics, the term frequency refers to the number of waves that pass a fixed point in a unit of time, which is essentially the same thing I was saying, but put into to different terms. It also describes the number of cycles or vibrations undergone during one unit of time by a body in periodic motion. Okay. Um, so I mean, it's really kind of how the word suggests, right? Frequency tells you how frequently a particle is vibrating in an observable um, point in time, right? Um, Something else that I wanted to get to. Um, I'll read this quickly, and this is reported from Hindawi.com journals, scientific journals. Um, and it states that what is the frequency that humans vibrate at? And their observations led them to the important parts of the human body vibrational frequency are generally located in about 3 hertz to 17 hertz, right? Often, and I said this in my in previous videos and certainly in my book that often vibrational frequency is measured in hertz, sometimes in megahertz, right? Um, According to international standard ISO 2631 and the vertical vibration of the human body, the sensitive range, right, encompassing our typical senses, the sensitive range is located in about 6 hertz to 8 hertz, right? So typically our senses perceive things that vibrate in that range, right? Not to say that we are handicapped in that way at all. We certainly have the ability to transcend that. But this is what, in our current developmental state, um, the average individual is accustomed to observing at. Now, I've spoken about your pineal and the beautiful importance of the pineal, right? And how the pineal actually can act as a means uh, to sort of regulate your vibrational frequency. You could almost think of it as the dial on a radio, right? You set your dial to, and it actually operates in a very similar way. You set your dial on your radio to a certain frequency of hertz, right? And it picks up the signal that is at that frequency. Well, the same thing for your pineal. Your pineal acts as your dial, so to speak, to be able to communicate and to send or receive messages um, in terms of vibrational frequency regulated by your pineal. Um, and another way of looking at that is, folks, much of what we perceive, again, I stated to you earlier what we are used to perceiving. Um, you see that range between 6 hertz and 8 hertz is sort of falling short of actually where even our physical bodies vibrate. We vibrate our physical bodies as according to the Hindawi journals from 3 hertz to 17 hertz. So there's quite a bit there that's left to be desired in terms of what we are typically used to perceiving, right? Um, but there is a lot more, and the nuclear journal, science journal, um, I believe it was, it reported, um, um, or maybe the journal of neuroscience, pardon me, reports that our physical eyes, actually only perceive less than 5% of what is actually there in the light spectrum, right? Less than 5%. Uh, and yet we are accustomed to the old phrase, I believe only what I see with my two eyes. Well, you're not seeing much. Or at least it's a very limited perception indeed. So how do we increase that perception? Again, utilizing our pineal and understanding, one, that we are at constant vibrational frequency, and that our vibrational frequency can also and does also impact our perception and our ability to perceive different frequency ranges, right? And we can with practice, and once you have decalcified your pineal, right, we can learn to control or regulate that perception by regulating our vibrational frequency, which is something that you want to most certainly control anyway. And we're going to talk in future installments about how to actually, first of all, to understand what our vibrational frequency is in terms of our physical bodies, right? Um, how it's measured, how it has been measured, and how our mental and emotional states actually go a long way in dictating what our vibrational frequency is. Okay. But I don't want to get too far into future installments with that. Um, I do want to talk to you next about the quantum field, right? Um, and there's some really interesting work being done out there by a number of scientists, and it's really not hard to find much information on the quantum field, whether you're talking about book form or just going and looking it up digitally. Um, you will find a wealth of information on the quantum field. That wasn't always the case, though. Um, because Newtonian physics doesn't really allow for the quantum field. um, in fact, the quantum field is one of the things that perplexed Einstein, right? Um, I forget what his description was, but I found it humorous at the time. I think he said there's something funny that happens at the particle level that doesn't make sense to him. Uh, and I'm going to get into a little bit of what he was talking about at the time. Um, but to stay focused on the quantum field, the quantum field, folks, is the energetic field that connects all things at the most basic or the smallest levels. We mean down at the particle levels, right? Down at the neutrino level. The quantum field is there, interacts with, intertwines with, and is a part of all of existence, right? That's why, and I write about this in my book, separation mentality is truly an illusion, right? Because nothing or no one is actually separate. You are really never alone, as it would be. Um, and truth be told, all things are in fact connected energetically, if no other way, right? And that energetic field, as all things, is vibratory, right? So our means of interacting with that field have a lot to do with our vibrational frequency resonance, right? Okay, so I want to move on and talk a little bit about some other things. But first, I'm going to read to you um, a definition. Now, there's a field called epigenetics, right? Um, and it gets into where I'm going to go with this next section, right? Because as I mentioned to you, the quantum field um, and how it is connective and connected to all things, that includes certainly us. What is very interesting and incredibly profound is that human beings impact the quantum field. Indeed. Um, how do we do so? All right. So every human being has what is referred to as a biosphere. It is your personal electromagnetic field that you are constantly emitting from your heart center, right? Um, your biosphere is literally that. It's a sphere, an energetic sphere, right? That when measured had typically been observed at upwards of 24 feet, right? On average in most human beings, literally, right? So we're talking about a literal electromagnetic energetic field that extends from every single human being, right? I just threw up inadvertently, just threw a little mudra up there. Another video. In fact, I've done videos on that. Check in the library. All right. But yeah, the our biospheres are interactive with the electromagnetic quantum field, right? Um, and we can hence send signals. In fact, we do constantly send signals into the quantum field through the interaction of our biosphere with the field. Now, I've explained in numerous previous videos, and I go into this a little bit in my book as well. I mentioned a book briefly, folks. Please make sure that you go and check out the book on Amazon. The title is Peace, Love, Respect. This is the New Way by King Sadiq. Please go and check that out. And by the way, make sure that you please like, share, and subscribe. I should have mentioned that in the beginning, but we really want to grow, folks, and make sure that we're getting this information out to as many people as possible so that we can really understand um, with better clarity exactly what we are, so that we can stop shrinking ourselves into these vulnerable, easily manipulated automatons that the socially economic elite would love us to be, so that they can continue to control and manipulate, keeping the old paradigm and the systems of control that they enjoyed along with that. But no more for that. That's all part of the old paradigm. We're now already into and firmly cementing the new paradigm, and understanding ourselves and how incredible and incredibly powerfully we are is a vastly important part of that. All right. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna get into reading this definition really quick. The field is epigenetics, um, which I'm sure you've probably heard, folks, but it just touches again on what I was referring to and how we interact with the quantum field and how we can control our vibrational frequency, um, even to awaken and fully express our DNA. Because I've mentioned in many a video that we go around and live our lives only operating at about 30% DNA efficacy, right? And if you think about that, folks, what else in your life would you accept operating at only 30%? Not much, right? So why in the world will we be satisfied with our DNA? In fact, our human expression of what we are only being at about 30%. Well, epigenetics touches on how we can affect that to increase higher percentages, which in turn gives us that much more ability to influence our own biosphere and thus control at a conscious level what we actually transmit out into the quantum field. All right. Okay. So let me get to that definition quickly here. Epigenetics is the study of how cells control gene activity without changing the DNA sequence. Epi means on or above, right? Or higher in Greek. And epigenetic describes factors beyond the genetic code. Epigenetic changes or modifications to DNA that regulate whether genes are turned on or off. These modifications are attached to DNA and do not change the sequence of DNA building blocks within the complete set of DNA in a cell, which we call a genome. All of the modifications that regulate the activity or the expression of the genes is known as the epigenome, right? Okay. So again, folks, that all just touches into the fact that we indeed um, can make our and tune ourselves, certainly to be that much more influential and impactful in what we purposefully transmit into the quantum field via our biosphere. All right. Um, so I talked a little bit about some things that don't fit into Newtonian science, Newtonian physics, that is, and how some of those things, perplexed some of the most intelligent minds that we've known, like Albert Einstein. But yet there were others who were able to grasp that much better. And when I say better, I mean that they were more comfortable being in that space and utilizing um, every tool that they had to not only understand that, but go further into our understanding of quantum physics, right? Um, so there's an experiment that's been done decades ago and has been repeated numerous times since. But these experiments, and this experiment in particular, um, are a good example of some of those things that perplex our early great minds and that do not fit into Newtonian physics. All right, let me give you a little bit of a display here for you to see. Oops. All right. All right, folks. Okay. Pull this up a little bit more. You might lose more on me, but you won't lose my voice. Okay. So this is depicting, and please don't take my word for anything, folks. Never ever take my word or anybody else's word for that matter. For anything, always make sure that you do your own research. But this is just a little bit of a visualization for you to aid in helping you to picture this. Um, the split screen experiment, and I don't have time to go into detail about this. Again, do your own research on this. But it dealt with scientists observing the behavior of particles, right? At the smallest level, right? Neutrinos. They utilize photons to perform these experiments, and the results they got were quite profound. Um, you can research that, and you'll find similar images. But what they found, just to sort of summarize it quickly, is that the results of those experiments, right, which again were aimed at observing the behavior of particles, um, is that the behavior of the particles themselves changed depending on a very much unexpected catalyst. And that catalyst, folks, was human observation. What? That's right. The results of the experiment changed observably depending on whether or not the behavior of said particles was being observed by humans. Wow. Didn't think such a thing possible, did you? Certainly not provable in the lab, but it has been, folks. And again, this is not even a recently, a recent discovery. This experiment was done decades and decades ago. I'm sorry I didn't pull up the date for you, but you can do plenty of research and easily find this and find even articles, probably even some quotes were from Einstein and some other scientists of how perplexing um, that discovery was. And again, it has been repeated numerous times, right, since then. But really gives us something that we did not have before in physics, which is a new player, human consciousness, right? Okay. This is just another visualization of what some of those experiments look like. And I guess this would give you a better visualization of particles and waveforms. Folks, we now know that matter at its most basic level is exists both in particle and waveform simultaneously. All right. Another very powerful aspect of physics where quantum physics comes into play. All right, I just want to show you a couple other things quickly here. This next experiment This is a or visualization aid is depicting some work that of a scientist that I mentioned profoundly in my book, and that is Dr. Masaru Emoto, right? Um, and Dr. Emoto's findings are profound indeed, right? Um, Dr. Emoto did some incredible experiments um, with audibly spewing certain phrases or concepts into flasks of water and then flash freezing those flasks and then notating and observing and notating the vast differences in the crystalline ice formations, right? um Very profound. And if you look here, you'll see some of the incredible findings. These are just pictures of some of the results. And you see with the negative phrases, like, for example, "I will kill you." Look how ugly and murky that is, right? Where conversely, look at "thank you" or "love," right? Um, just goes to show you how different frequency ranges manifest in physical reality. So obviously, the negative phrases like "I will kill you" or the lower vibrational frequencies, whereas though the higher vibrational frequencies like peace, and thank you, and love, um, you see expressed in the beautiful ice formations that you see on the paper here. All right. Very profound. I talk a lot more about that in my book. Again, folks, please go and get the book. uh, um, I think that you'll find it very profound, and it is designed to be something that truly asks you a lot of open-ended questions in order to get you to think, right? And present some information to you that perhaps you may not have had access to before. All right. Um, Quickly before I get ready to open this thing up here, I also want to show you how profound the direction we're headed in with this, right? With us understanding our vibrational frequencies, with us understanding that our consciousness is indeed an actual player in physics, right? And that as we control our consciousness and what our consciousness transmits to the quantum field, we can indeed far better control and, in fact, potentially completely control our reality, right? All right. So just an example of how we use that. And again, this is all as I state frequency, it's not difficult for us to make the correlation between sound and frequency, as sound is our particles um, uh, excited in waveform, right? Um, and utilizing that is something that we refer to as sonics, right? Okay. So for sonics, scientists have really been able to do some incredible work utilizing sonics to change the vibrational frequency of matter and in particular actual human cells, right? Um, what I want to show you is that here's a picture here, folks, and pardon any lack of clarity, but generally what you're looking at are stem cells, right? Stem cells in a controlled environment that are and have been excited and in that way manipulated uh, by sound, right? Scientists utilizing sonics to stimulate stem cells and to manipulate their growth. Um, Folks, just so you know, stem cells are those incredible cells. Um, that are able to sort of, they're almost like genetic Play-Doh, right? You can turn stem cells into any cellular expression of the physical human body. In animals, they exhibit incredible properties. It is stem cells that allow animals to do things that we consider to be miraculous, but are actually within the potential of human beings being able to achieve, like completely regrowing limbs, right? Something that we would think is impossible. We previously at one point thought that regrowing brain cells. We, in fact, while I was growing up in school, they taught us that once brain cells die off, that's it. They're just gone. We now understand and know that it is not impossible to regenerate or regrow brain cells. And we're starting to learn as we get out of the box, so to speak, that there are vast potentials and possibilities ahead where we previously saw limitations and impossibilities. All right. So, what scientists are doing now is utilizing sonics to control the vibrational frequency of the stem cells to direct them to grow into um, the kind of cells that would be utilized or needed for particular medical treatment or cure. Um, And in this particular situation, we're talking about stem cells being manipulated to form bone cells, right? Another similar picture. Okay. Again, folks, don't take my word for it. Look into it yourselves and see with your own clarity exactly what the incredible possibilities are the more we learn about ourselves and exactly what we are, the more we can see that we've got to open up our minds and indeed our focus into improving ourselves, right? Um, and as we do so, the potentials of what that means in terms of how we actually control, manipulate, live our lives, and can better take control of our reality in every aspect of it, right? Um, but the potentials, particularly in health and science, are mind blowing to say the least. Um, but keep those basic concepts in your mind, folks. If nothing else, after walking away from this video, and those concepts are the fact that all things in existence are in constant motion, right? Everything is constantly in some vibrational motion. Um, Also, number two, that the quantum field is the energetic field that intertwines with, is a part of, connects, and essentially manipulates expression of all things into physical reality. All right. And that human beings and our consciousness is actually a major player in physics, and that we can impact reality itself, right, by impacting the behavior of the smallest units of matter, and essentially physical reality, which is particles, right? And we can do so by sending our, or rather transmitting our intent into the quantum field, which again, folks, I talk extensively in previous videos about how we do so most of the time subconsciously, which is why we end up projecting our issues into the field and end up living that reality. But now, as we're understanding and learning more about how we actually have great influence in that process, right? We're learning how we can now transmit our influence from our consciousness rather than our subconsciousness. All right. And then the third thing is to understand again is that as human consciousness is a major player in physics, we do have that opportunity and in fact our personal responsibility, right? I would say to learn more about how we can impact our own and control our own biosphere so that we can utilize it as a tool to consciously transmit to the quantum field and thus transmit the reality that we want. Right? Time for us to live our best lives, our best reality. So let's transmit that into the quantum field. The only way that we can do that, folks, is that we gain that much more focus and control by being our best selves, right? And thus, as you are your best self, you transmit that consciously into the quantum field. And that is what expresses as your physical reality. All right. Your best life. So achieve being your best self by learning to control, first to understand your vibrational frequency and how it fluctuates throughout the course of every day. And then how you can take steps to control that, right? And then once you can control your vibrational frequency, you have the potential to transmit consciously your intention, right, into the quantum field. Um, all right, folks. So please, any comments or questions that you might have, express those and we can discuss, and I will do my best um, to answer those questions. And if you watch this later on and you have questions at that point, certainly drop a comment. I'll go back into the comment section and answer your question to the best of my ability. All right, folks, I thank you truly. And please continue to like, share, subscribe. Uh, Make sure you tell everybody you know. Please tell some folks you don't know. So that collectively we can continue to build what? The worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq. All right. I'm going to open this up and see if we have any folks in the chat here who would like to comment. And if not, we'll close it out and you can just comment later. And I described how I will get to answering that. All right. All right. Well, folks, if no current questions, I'm going to close it out. I'm going to leave it open for future questions. I'm not certain how many folks got the notification uh, that we were doing it live, and this is just the first live stream for this 10-part series anyway. So, um, you know, and it is the middle of the day on a football day. Folks, we know in the rat race, we often find a multitude of distractions, but the most important thing is that we carve out at least some of our time um, to focus on higher consciousness and continue to evolve and to actively change our paradigm. All right. I love you all. It's been a pleasure. Um, I like this format, so we're probably going to do this again and maybe next week. And next week, we're going to focus on making sure that we get better notifications to folks so that we can actually have a nice spirited, lively chat afterwards and do a little Q&A. All right. I thank you tremendously. That was the fourth installment of the 10-part series, What We Are, I Am, continue to be, and will be going forward. Your brother and your partner in traversing this journey that we're on, right? This beautiful journey as we continue to evolve and building that thing that oh yeah, the worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq. I love you all. Truly. Thank you. I'm out.